It was supposed to be a celebration of 15-year-old David Jaramillo's upcoming birthday. Instead, a ride on Adventureland's Raging River Ride would leave his youngest brother dead after their raft filled with water and flipped upside down, trapping both in their seatbelts. However, there had been troubling signs earlier in the day that not all was well with the ride, and had the park itself cut some corners. This is the story of the Adventureland Raging River Ride tragedy. The Raging River Ride has been a star of the Adventureland Resort in Altoona, Iowa since its opening in 1983. Designed by the famed Intamin Amusement Rides, it consists of 6-person rafts that move down an artificial rapid. Intamin are known and highly appreciated for their rides and roller coasters, of which many feature at amusement parks around the world. Given that the Raging River system and its boats had passed their most recent inspection by the Iowa State Inspector just the day before the accident, how the Jaramillo's raft flipped over appeared a mystery. However, some disturbing revelations would come to light in the days, weeks, and months following the accident that would cast doubt about the ride's safety and, for some, even the park itself. On July 3, 2021, 11-year-old Michael, his two brothers August, 14, David, 15, their cousin, and his parents visited Adventureland to celebrate David's upcoming birthday. Not known to the Jaramillo family, however, earlier that morning, the pumps responsible for maintaining correct water levels on the Raging River Ride had experienced mechanical difficulties, and there had been multiple reports that day of rafts scraping the trough, which had damaged some of the raft bladders. Around 4.5 hours before the accident, maintenance staff removed some of the rafts to repair any deflated bladders and refill them. This included the number 2 raft, which would carry the Jaramillo family later. 2 hours after this maintenance, the rafts returned to service. However, the Estrada family rode the number 2 raft not long later. They would experience some troubling issues, most notably having to lean forward in their seats to stop the raft flipping over, but they never reported this to the ride operators. Shortly before 7:30 p.m, the Jaramillo family boarded raft number 2 on the Raging River Ride. Not long after the ride started, however, their raft began filling with water, and after bumping into the side, completely tipped over. David Sr., his niece, wife and August managed to escape the raft. Unfortunately, 11-year-old Michael and 15-year-old David were trapped underwater in their seatbelts. While bystanders and other riders were quick to offer assistance, the ride operators, at least initially, were nowhere to be seen. At around 7:30 p.m, a witness to the carnage called 911, and emergency services were dispatched to the park. Despite the desperate attempts by a growing number of people in the water, they could neither flip the raft or free the boys. A rider on another raft would later say, regarding help from staff, "There are no staff by the river, it's just empty out there, you know. We couldn't get a worker to help us until the end of the ride." When the ride operators finally did learn about the accident, they pressed the emergency stop button. This should have quickly drained the water, preventing any further danger of drowning. However, the emergency stop button had almost no effect. As luck would have it, a group of off-duty police and firemen were working with park security that day. With their help, the 1,700-pound boat was turned upright, and the boys, who had been trapped underwater for at least 5 minutes, were finally released. When the ambulance arrived at the crisis and emergency gates, they surprisingly found the gates padlocked shut, and staff appeared unaware of the unfolding crisis. A second gate blocked by a fireworks display further hampered the attending paramedics. The closest the ambulance could get was over 100 meters or 330 feet from the accident, although finally, Michael and David Jr. were on their way by ambulance to a Des Moines hospital. Sadly, the following day, the Jaramillo's worst nightmare would come true. 11-year-old Michael tragically died, with an autopsy listing drowning as the cause of his death, while 15-year-old David remained in a medically induced coma. An early report by state inspectors found that the faulty water pumps and incorrect water levels caused the rafts to scrape the bottom of the troughs, damaging the bladders. More disturbingly, it was found that the repairs were carried out with flex tape instead of an approved patch method, and many of the rafts had been operating as a result with partially deflated bladders. However, Adventureland attorney Guy Cook would go on the offensive. He stated, "Tens of thousands of boats have been launched on this ride. Never ever has a boat tipped over or capsized in this 40 years. So that tells us, number 1, the ride is safe. Number 2, something different had to have happened on this day." However, as mentioned earlier, another guest had later described how raft number 2 had been unstable when she rode it. The emergency stop button, which state inspectors confirmed had been pressed, should have promptly drained the water to eliminate the risk of drowning. However, facts on the day show the water level remained almost constant throughout the ordeal. So the question is, how did the ride pass its inspection by Iowa state inspectors only one day before? It would appear the inspector merely observed the emergency stop system's presence, but did not actually test it. An Iowa Division of Labor report found that the park committed 17 violations in relation to the accident. It stated the park had used parts not approved by the ride's manufacturer. It used flex tape rather than approved patches to fix leaks in the raft's flotation bladders. The park also failed to test the raft after it made repairs and before releasing it for service. Inadequate training was also noted and a deficient daily inspection. And of course, inadequate emergency access on the day of the accident. However, Adventureland and its lawyer have clung firmly to the line that a deflated bladder could not have caused a raft to flip over, despite the countless times rafts on similar rides have capsized for that very reason. The Ohio Division of Labor issued 11 requirements for the ride to reopen. However, in December of 2021, Adventureland came under new owners who are confident the ride can reopen. They emphasized that safety was their number one priority. After waking from a 4-week coma, unable to see nor speak, the now 16-year-old David Jaramillo was discharged from hospital and miraculously expected to make a full recovery. In June of 2022, the Jaramillo family filed a wrongful death lawsuit against Adventureland seeking damages for the death of their 11-year-old son Michael and injuries sustained by themselves and their other children. A trial date is set for March of 2024.